having these expectations on what mental health looks like and what body positivity looks like and what recovery, it's all horse shit. Like, can we just drop the expectations and just be who we are?
Hey y'all, Christina here. Thank you for bearing with us while we skipped an episode last week. Lauren has been moving and I had to go out of town for a funeral, but we're back now and we're super excited to release this interview with our friend Chris. Just a heads up, the audio will be a little funky. Lauren's movers lost her microphone and headphones, so she had to do without. And also Chris was struggling with his setup as well. I think the end result is okay. All right, I'm not going to waste any more time on excuses. Here's the show. We hope you all enjoy. Should we just get started?
All right.
Let's do it. I'm pumped.
All right, we are so pumped also. And I even have a special tagline.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
Chris, do you want to say hello, friends, or do you want to wait silently?
Hello, friends.
And welcome to Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast where we write our stories one day at a time.
Aww.
I kind of like that.
I know, right? It's got the writing angle. It's got the addiction angle, sobriety. It's everything. And I'm Christina.
And I'm Lauren.
And we have with us a guest, Christopher Robin. Say hello, Christopher.
Howdy.
Do you prefer Chris or Christopher?
I mean, in daily life, I go by Chris, but when I started writing, I was like, I just don't want Chris because there's a billion Chris's. I was like, maybe I'll go with Christopher Robin.
Well, yeah, it's pretty, it sticks in your memory.
Yeah, I was going to say, it catches your attention.
You know what? It's one of those things that I kind of ran from it through my childhood because it was like people would tease me. And then as I became an adult and a writer, I was like, fuck it, I'm leaning into it. I don't care.
That's right. It's funny because I'm the opposite. Well, no, I'm not the opposite. I also go by Chris in my real life.
Yeah.
But on the podcast and in my writing, I'm Christina.
Yeah.
And Lauren's just Lauren.
Yeah.
No, but sometimes I go by Lauren AF because those are my two middle initials.
Lauren as fuck.
My parents gave me two middle names, having no idea what it would turn into.
So, Christopher, assuming the listeners don't know anything about you, why don't you introduce yourself? Wait, did you listen to our identity episode by any chance?
I listened to... Was that the one after you got my package in the mail?
I think so.
Probably the first one. I haven't listened to the second identity one, the one that just came out.
Well, so...
I didn't listen to the latest one.
So the reason that I ask is because I kind of want to ask you, what do you do?
Oh. So, okay. Something you'll probably learn about me pretty quick is that, like, I don't have, like, single thoughts. I don't have, like, black and white opinions. So, like, every question you ask is loaded and it can go in, like, any different direction. Because when people ask that, my first reaction is, no one cares what I do for a living. Like,
well, that's not what we mean.
Yeah, that was exactly the point we made.
That's what I didn't hear. And I love that because I hate when people take it that way.
We do too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, you asked what I do.
So we want a real answer to that then.
Yeah.
Okay. I do.
Okay. I'll make it easier.
Okay.
What is your background with mental health and why are you on this podcast?
You know, when I discovered my writing voice years ago, it seemed to lend itself to a lot of introspection and reading about mental health. You know, writing is part of it. It's part of discovering what's inside you, right? So I stumbled across all these writers that were just spilling their guts out there. And I was like, wow, that's impressive. I wonder if I have anything like that in me. So as I went further and further, I started reading and I kind of came across the idea of sobriety and mental health, and they're hand in hand. So you can't really do one without the other. So I've been sober since beginning of 2022. So
from alcohol?
Yes, just from alcohol. And, through the process, you learn, I probably had ADHD as a kid, just like everyone else, and anxiety coming out of my ears and all this stuff. So I had run into Christina on Medium. She had written a piece, and I happened to be editing a lot at the time. Isn't that how we met?
Yep. I was going to segue into that at some point, so this is perfect.
Yeah, I think that's how we met, and I read your piece, and that's how I found your work. And then my creative partner at the time and we were starting a podcast, and you guys were kicking around the same idea of like mental health and what did they call it? Somebody called ours a loose fit podcast, relaxed fit podcast, where you kind of talk about like whatever you want. So, I mean, I guess I'm on the show just because I'm really attracted to finding like-minded people who can vulnerably tell their stories and connect with other people by sharing the most personal parts of themselves. And that's what this is all about.
Hell yeah.
One of the things that I love is that I feel like we don't try to do, like we could do a recovery theme podcast or an advice or things like that. It's like, no, we just tell it how it is.
That has always attracted me because most of the internet is pretty much polluted, especially Medium, I guess. It's just self-help platitude garbage that I just really can't stand. I don't know. I don't like people giving advice because everyone's life is different. I think we're all better if we just learn to, I don't know, go on our own journey.
Amen.
Any sense or not, I'm just babbling.
No, that's what we do on here. We babble all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And not to, like take down people that are doing good work on like a recovery focused or something like that. But I find a lot of people, Christina and I both have history of eating disorders, and I imagine it's the same with like addiction. Like a lot of people are giving all of their self-help advice and saying, like, look, and my life is so great. And the people that are still in it are looking at them and being like, you're not in recovery. That's true. Yeah. You're faking it.
Yeah, and that's true because sometimes you really do know. You know right off the bat if somebody's trying to bullshit you or not, especially after you've gone through it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. And speaking of Medium, I don't know what piece you originally read by me, but I posted a lot about my alcohol sobriety on there. And as we know, I relapsed in January of this year. And so now I feel kind of silly looking at all that stuff. Like I was so cocky about it. Maybe that's not how it came across.
I don't think so, but it is really a weird thing. And even now, when I look back on like my Sober Curious pieces and all that, like it kind of makes me hurl.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, gross. I hate that I wrote this crap because it comes off like self-help or something.
Sometimes that's how I feel listening to this podcast, not going to lie.
I try to stop that from happening. And they're like, no, we're not that great.
Yeah, Lauren has always been way more anti-platitudes than I have been.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's hard to stay away.
Yeah.
And it feels like a little bit of a double-edged sword because I kind of discovered sobriety just by reading other people's experiences. So now it feels a little bit ironic, to write about it. Or now I don't even really write about it anymore. I don't like to.
Well, it's just part of your life, It's not a huge deal anymore.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's kind of in the past.
Talk about your sobriety and your mental health getting back on track.
Oh, yeah. I was a pretty... Okay. I was a
Hold on.
Yeah.
There's like a loud fan. Say something.
Oh, I do hear that.
Damn it.
You shouldn't have said anything. Just let it go.
Yeah, I mean, I know from doing this long enough that I would rather like cut it off when they start rather than force everyone to talk forever and then realize it's unusable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's happened a lot of times and it's the worst.
I actually went to a friend's house. We did a whole session. We had video. We had the whole thing.
Oh, no.
And then it turns out that like he never turned the cameras on and he never turned the mics on.
No.
It was like a whole afternoon wasted.
Okay, it's not so bad now.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I'm hearing it now, it wouldn't annoy me to listen to. So
Yeah.
I think we're good.
I'm so sorry, Chris.
It's fine. Listen, if we have to like redo it or something, I really don't care. It's easy enough to do.
Me neither.
Because was planning on getting a new mic and headphones and stuff anyway.
I guess I'm going to have to because my movers might have thrown them out.
Right.
Oh my God. Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties today, but you know what? We're pushing through.
Yeah.
So back to your origin story.
My dad was a musician, so I grew up in bars and clubs and stuff where he was playing music. And for me, alcohol was just always around everywhere we went. Family stuff, birthday parties, the bars and clubs on the weekend with all their adult friends and stuff. So it was just part of life. So it didn't take much for me to just kind of follow in their footsteps. And it's been hard going through recovery and like not resenting them over it. I had to do a lot of work because I'm very close with them still, but I don't want to resent them.
Yeah.
So I joined the Army and I left home in 98. And I guess that's when I just kind of started drinking socially on my own. And then that just continued. My wife and I ended up meeting in a bar. We were neighbors, but we also frequented the same watering holes. So then when we had kids, this is like 11, 12 years ago now, that's when things really went kind of sideways. Like I didn't know how to cope with being a dad. It was just so hard.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I just leaned into the drinking for relief because that's what it is. It's just a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So it just kept getting worse and worse. And, our marriage started to struggle. And I didn't really think alcohol was a problem. I just kept rolling with it. And then a few years ago, I started working heavily on Medium and, met some people that had been sober. And I was like, maybe I ought to give this a try. And it just started with like a dry January.
Wow.
In 2022. And I was like, this feels pretty good. I wonder if I can just keep going. So I reached out to a counselor, and she's actually this woman from South Africa that I met through Medium.
Oh my God,
she
stop.
kind of served as my my sponsor. And she got me through the early months of sobriety. And then I just kind of took it on my own and went from there.
That's amazing. I had no idea that Medium played such a pivotal role in your sobriety.
Oh, for sure. I mean, even before I quit or anything, I'd be journaling, and it kind of breaks my heart to look back at old journals, and almost every like Saturday or Sunday morning, I'd be like, well, I drank too much last night, but we had a good time and blah, 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 blah. Same shit. Every weekend was the same shit for years. I was like, I don't really want to do this anymore.
Yeah, we can relate so much to like the reading of old journals. And I was just reading an old journal last night from this past December, and talking about how much I wanted to die. And it was so fucking painful. I just wanted to reach out and give my old self a hug.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking how you said like that you didn't think it was a problem. And it just like, of course, I feel like that's how it happens to everybody, is because it doesn't go, it doesn't 180 into an issue. You say like, yesterday, alcohol wasn't a problem for me. Today, it's a tiny, tiny bit worse, but it's the same as yesterday. So it's still not a problem. Over the course of years, and it's like, oh, wait, it became a problem.
And what's funny is it's just so normalized in our culture that I feel like when you go through things in life, you cross thresholds as you age, right? Like, so when you guys discovered your own individual problems, the eating disorders and the mental health stuff, when you start to see them differently, you cross the threshold. You're looking back through that doorway at people that haven't crossed that threshold. You've grown, they've not. And I can't stop myself from looking back at the rest of the world and all their normalized drinking and their shitty behavior and all this stuff. I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm not there anymore.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective.
You know what gave me that idea?
What?
Is I have a good friend of mine, a really good writer on Medium. She lost her daughter to cancer. And I think her daughter was like 15 or something at the time.
I think I've read her stuff.
Yeah, her name is Jacqueline Dooley.
Shout out.
She's really, really great. But I always, I see her as she's one of those people that crossed the threshold of losing a child to cancer. And no one else can see that perspective unless you've crossed that threshold. And I know addiction or mental health or whatever, it's not the same, but it kind of is. Like when you decide to make the change, you're now looking back through that doorway at everything that was before.
Yeah. it's not like we are looking down on them or judging them for not having had the enlightenment that we have.
Yep.
It's that we're like almost worried for them or sad or sad for ourselves, worried for ourselves.
It's hard not to look at it like a pity situation, but there's part of me, I'd be lying if I didn't admit that. I'm like, oh, you poor fucks are still running around drowning your sorrows.
Yes.
You know? But I mean, that's not my problem. It's kind of theirs. I don't know.
Lauren, do you have anything to say about that? I feel like you have thoughts.
It's making me think a lot about, the roommate that I just had, because like she's someone that I originally met one of the first times in eating disorder treatment. And I feel like that's what I watch her just keep like going back. And I feel like it's just become comfortable for her. And that's what I hate, is seeing the people that are just like, oh, well, I just go back to treatment. And, when they're in there, then they say like all the right things, like, yeah, I'm going to get better and this is going to fix my life. And I just know in the back of my head, it's kind of like, no, you're just going to run back as soon as things get hard again. And I really wish better for you.
Okay, but you know what? That's straight up projection. I feel like.
But when I've seen her go through that cycle like 20 times in the time I've known her.
Yeah.
And when I see her doing it right now, because it was like when we were living together, I really believed her, felt, I think that she's really turned a corner. But then that's what happened again. And that's where she is, because she was, and I can tell, like talking to her now that she's there, that it's fine if she admitted she had to go back. But as soon as she did, she just like dropped right back in. It was just like, yep, this is where I'm comfortable and this is my life.
I really feel like these are the lies that we tell ourselves, and I think that's the root of the mental health part of it, is that you're lying to yourself all these times. You think you're trying to do something for yourself, but you're not really ready yet. And you're only ready when you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the reason interventions and shit don't work, because you're not ready yet.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been pretty open about my recent crises online. And I think this time around, I really am not trying to force myself to do anything that I know I'm not ready for. And so, yeah, like I still smoke weed and don't have the best diet. And, every day is a struggle, but I'm trying, and I don't have any lofty goals of recovery anymore. I'm just trying to survive another day and take care of myself the best that I can. Harm reduction.
Yeah. And I, since we've already talked a lot about alcohol addiction, I would say that's kind of where I feel the same, because there are some times where I feel like I'm not happy with how much I'm drinking, like, especially if I feel like it's been every single night for like multiple weeks. And I'm just like, really, you can't take a night off? That tells me there's an issue. But then I don't know. At the same time, it's like, then sometimes things do come up and I do get a break, and and I kind of feel that same thing where it's just like, well, that was nice, Do not feel terrible in the morning for like a week in a row.
Well, and that's just it, because like your drinking isn't the same as mine. Your reasons aren't the same as mine. My blackouts were different than yours.
I'm sure.
It's all different. So like, I really try hard not to pass judgment, because it did something different for me than it does for you or Christina or anybody else.
But it is still like a concern always in the back of my mind, partially because similar to you, I mean, not with the musician aspect, but I grew up with it in my family. I mean, I called early on. I realized like my dad has 5 sisters, and I was like, oh my gosh, they are all borderline, if not full-blown alcoholics, and none of them are admitting it. And so,
right. Well, they don't see it that way. When you grew up in the 70s and 80s, that's just how it was.
Yeah, it was like every family function that I knew is just like, oh yeah, everyone's going to be stumbling around and nearly blackout drunk. And that's just
right. And then you become an adult and you're like, that's not healthy. But that's not,
But at the same time, like, shame is the worst possible way to treat that. Because I've fallen into that trap with myself, like shaming myself, shaming others. And it just never helps. Never.
Yeah.
Now, shame is a horrible emotion to deal with.
I'm reading this really good book right now, Unlearning Shame by Devin Price.
Okay.
It's all about like systemic shame and how in our society individuals are shamed into changing their actions when really individuals only have so much power. And in America especially, there's a lot of shame about a lot of things. Like, I mean, we can talk about shame in addiction treatment, how if you're not, or even when we started this podcast, or, when we started podcasting together, we talked a lot about how we didn't want to, hold on, I lost my train of thought. Fuck. God damn it.
Side note, it just got really smelly in this room, and I'm hoping it's because Pico farted and I don't also have a gas leak to do.
Oh, God.
Now, this is high quality content.
Oh, yeah. Every week we bring the quality and the professionalism.
And the poop jokes.
But that's what appeals to people, because even, I know celebrities have kind of dominated the podcast world in the last few years, but mostly it's because they're just being themselves, and it's interesting to know what their daily lives are like.
Yeah. Oh, I remembered. There were a lot of like recovery podcasts out there, and we felt like unless we were actively in recovery, we weren't allowed to talk about our experiences because of the shame that we would receive. And I think that's still like, it's getting better, but it's still kind of prevalent. What do you think about that, Chris?
What I think about that is that it's kind of sad that we should feel shame for just sharing our experiences wherever you are in your journey. That's what people listen to your show for, because you're in the middle of it. You guys come on the show every week and you just talk about what you're dealing with. You're not looking back at it through rose-colored glasses and going, well, this is that, and this was great, and blah, blah, blah. No, this is real. And that's what I love so much about it.
Aw, thank you.
Christina sometimes tries to.
Tries to what?
Put a positive spin.
Oh, yeah, I do. I used to be really bad about like every episode had to have a lesson or something.
I just remember on my episode when I feel like I made you so uncomfortable at the end because you were like, what positive thing can you leave the listeners with? And I was like, nothing.
Yeah, Chris, Lauren was a guest on episode 44, and we are now on episode 164.
Oh, so that's how you got involved.
Yeah, we were friends on an eating disorder community online, and then she was a guest. She wanted to talk about, well, Lauren, you can just say it.
Yeah, I talked mainly about the hells of navigating insurance in regard to mental health.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because I had been through that.
Well, so Chris, I'm really curious how it was getting sober for you. Like, it couldn't have been just you decided and then you did it. It must have been really hard.
No, I mean, they call those people that quit drinking but don't really do any of the work, they call them dry drunks, because generally speaking, they're still assholes just as they were drinking. You have to do the work on yourself. You could call it recovery. That's what I called it for years because people don't really know. But really, it's working on yourself and your own mental health. So when I met this woman from South Africa, we were like, 6 hours apart in time, and it was really hard to coordinate. But we did video chats and stuff, and she helped me walk through those early steps. And what she did was she took some steps from the AA playbook and applied them to me. So it was like personalized addiction counseling is basically what it was.
Whoa.
It was wild. So she used the steps that made sense for me and didn't use the steps it didn't, because I'm kind of agnostic. Like, an AA is all about God and all this shit. And I don't really want anything to do with it.
Same.
So I was able to kind of tailor it for what I needed at the time. But what I didn't know was how many mental health things I really needed to deal with that I hadn't.
And, you can be abstinent from alcohol for years, and then all it takes is one crisis and you realize, oh, I'm not as solid as I thought.
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time. I mean, even not talking about addiction or recovery, just in your mental health journey, you could be going along fine. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, something comes up and it's going to fuck you up.
Well, yeah. And that's what it was like for me. The majority of last year when Lauren and I were podcasting, I was hiding a lot of stuff and I thought my life was fine. And now, arguably, my life is kind of a mess, but I'm okay with it because I know where I stand now. Like, there's no illusions or delusions
right.
of, faux recovery. It's just, I'm here and I'm doing my best and I'm not making any lofty claims. Yeah.
I think that's the best part of it. When you're kind to yourself and you're like, well, this is fucking hard and I'm doing the best I can every day.
Yeah. Lauren, were you going to say something?
I was. And now I was like, what was I going to say?
Oh, no.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Just that I feel like that's the difference where it's like you might not look the ideal picture of what people would say as, like Christina has gone through it and done the work and in recovery, but you have done so much work that I see.
Oh, thank you.
Of course.
And you know what else? Everything would be better. Everything would be better if people found a way to lower their fucking expectations instead of having these expectations on what mental health looks like and what body positivity looks like and what recovery. It's all horse shit. Like, can we just drop the expectations and just be who we are?
I mean, yeah, that's what I feel like that's what we try to do.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ways that you think people are deluding themselves about their mental health?
Oh, that is a good question.
It's too good of a question. I don't even
know
how.
It's too good of a question. Like, I don't have a black and white. I don't have a good answer. I don't know. I feel like a lot of it is people putting on a show on social media and stuff. I think that's kind of toxic.
Totally.
Yes, I agree with that.
And I don't know how to relate to other people anymore other than through that because I don't want to live in a bubble. But when I see this stuff, I'm just kind of turned off. I'm like, all right, I don't know. I just don't feel like it's real.
Well, I think earlier we were talking about feeling kind of judgment or pity for people who are maybe in that spot because we have lived life and we think that we know what's real. But I think the key is just looking at people like that with compassion. Like a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times they're younger and it's their first time doing recovery, whatever that means. And they just haven't found out for themselves yet. And they will at some point. But, I'm not going to help them by shitting on them.
Right.
Because speaking of looking at old journals, I think I talked about this recently. Like, I looked at my old journals from like the first time that I went through treatment for mental health. And I wasn't aware that I even was writing it like this until I read it. And everything was just like, yeah, I had a setback, but I'm really, like working through it and I can see all of the positives coming out and, I'm going to give this a go and hooray. And I was like, was I bullshitting myself? I think so.
Yeah, probably. But sometimes that's the way through it.
Yeah. Who are we to say what someone's path is supposed to look like, including our own?
Mm-hmm. That's the expectations.
Yeah, just no
we
expectations.
We even have expectations for our own journey.
Of course.
Yeah.
What do you think your expectations were, Chris, when you first got sober?
See, I was sober curious for a long, long time, like years probably, because I'd wake up on a Sunday and feel fucking miserable and be like, all right, so when I get sober, if I ever get sober, like maybe I'll learn to control it or maybe I'll be just, a social drinker or something. But I forgot the question because I'm...
What were your expectations?
I really tried to manage those expectations because I knew it wasn't going to be like cascading waves of epiphanies. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I think given the freedom just to go through it on my own, I think that's kind of how it ended up to be. Like every other week, it was like I was learning something new about myself and then looking back and be like, oh shit, that's why I was using.
Yeah, it's really easy to see those patterns from where you stand now.
From after, It's easy. The expectations are hard.
How has your family been helping or hindering your sober journey?
Well, the kids make it hard.
Real talk.
they're kids and they make everything hard. But it's helped my marriage a lot because I'm more aware of who the hell I am. And it doesn't hurt that my wife has a background in mental health and addiction. So she sees things a lot of the time way before I do. So I've always considered myself kind of a slow learner, but I don't think that's fair. I'm just kind of a thorough learner. I want to know like everything about everything before I dive in. So she'll see something ahead of time, and then I'll have this little epiphany, and I'll go to her and be like, I think all these years I've been doing this because of that. And she'll be like, well, yeah.
I could have told you that, but you wouldn't have listened to me.
Well, that's the point. Like, she could have told me that years ago, but I wasn't going to listen to her. I'd probably resent her for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we all know that sobriety and recovery, even using those words, I hate myself a little bit. But like,
they feel icky or like cliche.
But like, it's hard. We know it's hard. We know that sometimes everything gets worse when you take those first steps to get sober or, go to treatment or whatever. Things get worse. So like, did you have any of those struggles early on, or do you continue to struggle in the absence of alcohol? Like, what do you do instead?
I don't. I took it like, okay, this is my power that I've been giving away all these years, and I'm taking it back. So when I started to tell people that I wasn't drinking anymore, it was hard to relate to them. Even my dad, who loved getting together on a Saturday or Sunday and having a beer or 5 or whatever, that was a real challenge. But I just took it like I was taking my own steps, and I was taking the path less traveled, I guess. And I think there was a lot of power in that. Like, fuck you, I'm going to do it my way. I don't have to do what the rest of the world thinks that I should do.
Well, at the same time, you also had a community with Medium and with, people you've met on there. I feel like that is a vital part. That will make or break your experience if you have a community or resources around you.
Before I met all those people, and I have legitimately made some lifelong friends through like writing and Medium specifically, that I still talk to, and every one of them are sober for the most part. That having that community was absolutely crucial. And I didn't see it coming. Like, I was never on social media. I never really cared what anyone else is doing. But I think writers in particular just have that ability to dig deeper and share deeper parts of themselves than, most regular folks. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about writers who publish pieces or whatever. I'm talking about writers as in people who write, like journaling every day and stuff like that. Like, you people who write can really look into your soul.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That reminds me of like one of the best compliments that I remember getting. And it was when I was like 19 and I was bartending to fit into the conversation. But it was at like a huge restaurant, so there's tons of like servers and bartenders around. And one of them comes up to me at one point and is like, Lauren, I feel like you are always observing and always listening. And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah.
You were bartending at 19?
Yeah, I didn't know until I got that job. You can bartend in Michigan when you're 18.
What?
Yeah, I went to apply for a server position and they were like, well, we don't need any servers. Would you like to bartend? We need those. And I was like, can I do that? They're like, yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
I know. It's like, I couldn't drink it, but I could serve it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think writing is all about observation, like observing the world, observing yourself. Because I've gotten similar compliments, if you will. And it does feel good. Yeah, you just think kind of everyone does it, but not everyone does. Not regular folk.
Right. I don't think they have the ability to dig that deep. I don't know. I feel like so many people just go through their lives just kind of going through the motions, and that kind of makes me sad.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a blessing and a curse in some ways because you can't turn it off. So you are stuck just like... I don't know.
Yeah.
Just like overthinking everything to some degree.
Yeah, that's true. You can't turn it off.
I overthink everything. How did you get into writing, Chris? Were you always a writer?
No. I mean, I was a musician. I grew up a musician, but it was kind of forced on me, and I never really I don't want to say it was forced on me. It kind of was. Like my dad was a musician and my grandfather was, so he's kind of ushered me into it.
What do you play?
I started on guitar when I was 5.
Oh, wow.
I still play. I was actually just playing yesterday for the first time in like 6 months. It was pretty wild.
Nice.
But then when I decided to kind of get away from my family and take some space on my own, I stopped with music. And then I realized that I still needed a creative outlet. So I started writing. Writing led to learning about fountain pens and inks, and that all led to learning about art and painting. And it's like hobbies beget hobbies, right? You start one thing and it snowballs into 400 others.
Well, I was actually reading your piece the other day about sharing your art on social media.
Oh, yeah.
And you said that, like, social media can be a huge source of inspiration and connection, but also you do end up making less art the more you are on social media.
It's just such a catch-22. And I don't know what, like, because I may not have ever discovered that I enjoy doing art so much without that. But now that I'm there, I think maybe I've been inspired as much as I can be inspired. But so to talk about how I got into writing, I think it was just one thing leading to another, and then learning about mental health and sobriety and just writing those thoughts. Once I realized that there were people that wanted to read those thoughts because they were maybe relating on their own path, that's when it really appealed to me.
Yeah.
Oh.
I do want to touch on, your podcast and your literary journal that you're part of because that is related to mental health.
Oh, there's no doubt. It's funny because Christy Walter that I partnered with on that project, we did the book. She did more of the work. I did a lot of the artwork and helping her like gather the stories and stuff. But I was only 6 months sober when I met her. So it was like about 2 years ago now. And she was still drinking heavily. She was really, really depressed.
Oh, wow.
She was in an unhealthy relationship. And I think because we became friends, I kind of held her hand through a good bit of recovery herself. And now she lives on her own with her 12-year-old daughter. She's sober. She's got a new job. She's just in a much better place. And I think that's the power of connection. Like you two are the same.
Oh my God, so beautiful.
I know.
Yeah, I mean,
amazing.
That's the beautiful part about sharing your story because like you can meet people and really affect their lives. I think it's remarkable.
It really is. It's also a lot of pressure, I feel like. Well, that's just me overthinking again.
Well, maybe because like that was never the mission. It was never like I was never like, oh, I'm going to fix her or something. I was just like, nope, I'm just going to be with her until she can figure it out.
Yeah, when you started talking about her situation, then I wondered if it was similar to what we'd said earlier, that it was just kind of like you watching like, oh man, I want better for you, but I can't really tell you that.
No, I can't do it for you. You just share your story and, maybe you take your own path, but I'm here for you.
And don't have any expectations.
That's right. And because early on, I remember she was sober for a couple of months and she tripped up and I was like, it's all right. Just get up and put one foot in front of the other and keep going. That's all you do. Mm-hmm. I'm still your friend and I'm still going to be here.
So when did you all both decide to start the podcast together?
The podcast was an early plan, not long after we met. Like I was freshly sober and she had started the memoirist. I can't say that word.
The memoirist.
Yes.
It's so hard to say. But we met and we were like, I think we should do a show together because I think it'd be really good. And we did. It's just she lives in California and she was going through a lot at the time with job stuff and her daughter. And we did it for a while. We just couldn't keep it going. The time change was really difficult from here and the West Coast. It was so hard to coordinate.
We had enough problems with this recording.
That's what I'm telling you. Like, I think I hear that fan, by the way.
Fuck the fan.
I think I still hear it. But yeah, what would happen was like, Christina, you had sent me that email. You were like, okay, see you at 11 Eastern Standard Time. And I was like, fuck, is that 11 here or noon or is it 10? Am I late? It happens all the time.
Lauren.
I know. I told Christina when I first got on, I was going to be all like, I was so impressed with myself that I was like, I put it on my calendar and set an appointment. And so it's going to remind me and everything. but it did it for her time. So I was just looking like 11. Okay, I'm ready at 11. And then they're like 10 to 10 at my time.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm here. And I'm like, fuck.
It's such a challenge.
It really is. But yeah, I love your podcast, even though it's on hiatus. You and Christy are great.
Yeah, me too. I listen to a lot of them.
I appreciate that a lot. I mean, we were called a Relaxed Fit podcast basically because we were just two friends that would get on and fuck around and make each other laugh. And that's kind of all we cared about. And I miss doing it, but time is just hard.
Yeah. And you can pick up whenever you want. Like, that's the beauty of it. We've taken a lot of breaks.
Maybe that's what I should do. We were such a Relaxed Fit podcast that after a while we were like, we don't know what to talk about. Like, you guys at least have a theme.
Yo, so do you.
I guess we did.
Unfocused writer.
Yeah.
Well, like, I've kind of backed away from writing, at least publicly, so I kind of got away from that a little bit, and it was all based on Medium, so I was like, I don't know what to talk about anymore.
Well, that brings me to a question I had. You have a very full life. You have a lot of projects, at least from my perspective.
Oh, no, you're right.
Okay. How do you manage your mental health with that and like find some kind of balance?
I'll be honest, that's a huge issue for me because I am involved in a lot of crap. Like, I have 2 kids and a wife and a house to take care of, and we travel, we have difficult jobs, and I like to write and do art and play music and play with the kids and all this shit. And honestly, a lot of the time my mental health suffers because I don't take time just to either relax or just take care of my responsibilities. It's a hard thing to balance. And I'm not that good at it.
Yeah. Lauren, you can relate.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was really listening to the answer to this one. I was hoping you had wise words because I feel like I'm really at that point right now. It's like, obviously, all this stress with this move has been terrible.
Moving, yeah.
And my band has its first show in like 2 weeks. So, you know.
Well, that's sweet, but it's stressful.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm excited about it, but it's another thing. It's like, I want it to be perfect, but I also have all these other crazy things going on that I have to.
Yeah. I don't have any words of wisdom. I mean, I feel like so many days are just survival mode. And then I get to the end of the day and I'm like, how did I do today? And that's when I hear something like, my wife will say something like, I really need you to pick up the slack with A, B, or C. And I'm like, fuck, I just didn't even notice it. And I feel like a jerk off.
That's funny because I feel like, at least this time, I've been the opposite. Because it's like my brother is trying to plan. He wants all of the family. They have a place in Maine. And he's like, I'm inviting everyone to come to Maine over Thanksgiving. But we want to get an Airbnb for everyone. So we want to know, like how many people are coming. And he's just been like pestering me nonstop for the past couple of days. Like, hey, I need an answer. Do you know if you're going to be able to come yet? And finally, I was just like, I'm moving. I don't know what else to do right now.
Right.
Like, stop bugging me.
I think that's the challenge because, again, this is someone else. Families are difficult with this. They have expectations, and you're probably aware of them. You know they want you to be there, but the reality is the best thing for you may be to say, I can't make it.
Yeah, that's actually what I had to do yesterday is say, like, sorry, it looks like I'm just not going to be able to because I can't do everything that I need to get that set for you right now.
That's such a good feeling.
But you also tortured yourself for weeks probably over making that decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's
hard. I'm doing everything I can to get you the answer that you need in time. It's just like, I just got to say no.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
When I worked in an office, I'm unemployed now. My boss made me fill out this daily recap where I listed every single little minute thing that I did.
Oh my God.
But I actually came to really lean on that to remind myself what I had done. And at the end of the day, I looked at it and I was like, oh, wow, I feel like I didn't do anything, but I actually did a lot, if not too much. And now that I'm unemployed, I still do that. I keep a list of things that I did throughout the day or things that I need to do. And it keeps me grounded. But that's just the way my brain works. Like, I like things to be organized, and I have ADHD too, so.
Oh, you know what? Do you guys listen to other podcasts? Like, there was one about lists. This American Life a couple months ago was about lists.
I listened to that one.
It was good.
I can't really remember the details.
No, but I just remember this one woman just like kept these constant ongoing lists about like everything. And it didn't even really make sense. Like it was in no particular order. It was just like things. She was just writing them down and getting them out of her head. And I think it was kind of a neat story. I was like, maybe I'll start making lists.
Lists are great.
Yeah, I feel like I do that naturally. I mean, I think I've talked about before that some days where I'm getting down on myself because I feel like I do nothing. I go to work and then I come home and I just like chill and I don't do anything. And I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything. And then I'll like write down for a day, just kind of like everything, and could just be like, I woke up, I took a shower, I did 2 loads of laundry, I did the dishes. And then when I look back, it's kind of like, hey, you did a lot today.
Yeah.
Right. I think the magic is in the mundane things we do. We totally forget about them and we gloss over them as if we didn't do them. And then we're like, well, I didn't cure cancer today, so I must be a piece of shit.
I didn't write an essay today, but I wrote 3 paragraphs in my journal.
Yeah. Right.
And that's huge. I mean, that's how I've been able to consistently write for the last, I think I joined Medium like last year, or that's when I became active on it. And that's when I met you. And yeah, when you look back, it's like, oh, wow, this has been incremental growth. I'm capable of that.
Years ago, I saw this TED Talk. I can share it with you guys after this, but it was this guy, Dan Gilbert, and he did this whole TED Talk on time and our perception of it and how we feel like we are finished products, but as time goes on, we realize that we were never finished and we're never going to be finished.
Well, yeah.
10 years ago, you could say definitively like what your favorite food was or what your favorite music or song was or something. And then like today, you're like, no, I don't like that at all anymore. In fact, I don't even remember it.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
I think my point is like we're constantly evolving. We're never static, though we think we are.
That's a good point.
It's interesting because we put those things like, I feel like we're pressured to label those things about ourselves sometimes. People want to know, like you said, like, what's your favorite song? What's your favorite type of music? And I want to know that so I know who you are. And it's like, okay, but maybe next year that won't be who I am.
But see, that's interesting because like when you talk about getting to know somebody, like I feel like that's just an impossible task.
I don't even know myself.
Yeah.
That's my point. That's my point. Like we spend our whole lives trying to get to know who the hell we are inside. How do we expect to actually know anybody else?
Well, you only see as much as they show you, too.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe I just dove off the deep end with that one.
You just made us all stop and think.
Yeah. Welcome to my world.
I know. We're like just past the hour mark and there's so much I want to talk about, but I also want to be respectful of people's time. Is there anything that you didn't talk about that you really, really wanted to talk about this time? Because we'll have you back, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'd love to come back. I didn't have any expectations. I mean, honestly,
good.
I've made, I've made some really good friends like through podcasting and writing and all that stuff. And I feel the same about you guys. Like I'd love to continue the conversation either here or however we want to communicate. But I think it's important to just keep connecting.
Yes, that's why podcasting is so much fun, honestly. Like, I love when we get voicemails from people, and you've sent in a few voicemails, and we really appreciate that.
I'm bad at it. I'm always nervous to send those.
Me too.
Don't be.
Yeah, don't be.
Sometimes, like, those happen when you're driving or something, and I just have these, I love the thoughts I have sometimes when I'm driving. That's when I have my best thoughts. I'm like, I need to record this.
Yeah, well, that's my audio journals that I've recently started sharing on my other podcast. A lot of them are recorded like outside on my fire escape in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And I know if I don't record it, I will just forget,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that Christina does a lot that I wish that I could get more into because I do get like thoughts in my head. And sometimes, I run through the whole thought process for like 5 minutes and I'm just like, wow, that was amazing. I got to get that all down on paper. And as I'm trying, it's like, I lost half of it.
Well, yeah, just the other day, I talked for like 5 minutes about the first chapter of this book I'm trying to write. I was like, I have a great idea for how I want it to start and I'm going to forget. And I just talked about it. And I forgot I even recorded that until like yesterday. I found it. I was like, oh my God, thank you, past self.
Oh, that's funny.
You're trying to write a book?
I don't know. It's on the DL because I'm afraid of not doing it. I've been trying to write a book for like 6 years.
It's hard.
Yeah. But I'm trying. This is the year I'm like working on the outline, working on the manuscript. Like, we'll see.
Can you tell me like what style, like, is it nonfiction? Is it fiction? What is it?
It's memoir.
Okay.
It's like the same shit that I always post, but in a book form.
I don't think that's shit. I just want you to know that.
Stop it.
I
Tell me
know
more.
a lot of people that have written for the Memoirist and Age of Empathy and stuff for years that end up taking those essays and just putting them in a book.
Yeah.
Because they're so important to them.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of stuff I don't even talk about on the podcast that I want to share, but I haven't figured out the right channel yet, and I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah, it's just so many ideas you want to get out there, and then at the end of the day, you're just like, I'm tired now.
Yeah, that's why you do it in little bits and pieces, however you can.
Yeah.
I wonder if, because Chris is more my age, and I don't know if this is not popular anymore, but I know there were several years where I did NaNoWriMo.
NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month.
Yes. And what I loved about that is that it did like, it forced you, if you tried to keep up with it, which I completed 2 years.
Oh my God.
I'm impressed. I thought about it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I tried it for like several years in a row, and there were 2 years that I actually completed. But that's what you really had to do, is like I had to calculate out how many words I was supposed to hit per day. And sometimes maybe I wouldn't have hit that by, one day, but it's like you have to make it up the next day or you're going to fall behind. And it was like small chunks of time to do that every day, but it forced you to do it every day.
And for perfectionists like us, like that is such a vital skill to cultivate, is just getting that shit out. And then you can turn it into not shit later.
That, and also ADHD brains that I feel, like as soon as you like miss a day, then you're just like, well, I failed. I'm not going to do it. Okay.
And you're touching again on expectations.
Yeah. NaNoWriMo, for those who don't know, stands for National Novel Writing Month. The goal is to write a 50,000 word novel in a month. And every day you dump your words into their little word calculator, and there's no way to cheat at it. Like, you have to copy and paste 50,000 words into the box by the end of the time, or you won't win, I guess. I did it in 2008, and I got a t-shirt.
Me too. I got a t-shirt in 2003. It's the first year I completed.
Oh my God, I want to see.
I still have it, because when I was packing, I came across it, and I was like, hell no, I'm not getting rid of this. This is proof I did it.
We should all do it this year, because we don't have enough work.
Yeah.
That's right. We don't have enough projects going on.
What are you working on right now, Chris?
You know what? I wish I could say that I was writing more. I kind of miss Medium and writing there, but it's hard to not get sucked into the game they play with the money and the views and the stats and all that shit. And I'm really trying to take a step back. And when I restart, I'll make sure that I just do it for me. I mean, I started a pub called Something About Nothing just for my little weird things that I want to write about.
Tell the listeners what a pub is.
A publication on Medium is a platform, and a publication is basically, you could think of it like a magazine within that platform. So it's like a theme. So publication owners have themes, and you can submit your work to those publications to stay within themes and stuff. So I had been a part of many of them over the last several years, but it just kind of drains you after a while to try, and you can't help but get sucked in trying to make stats and get people to read your stuff. And I don't want to do that anymore. So while I take a step back, I'm doing a ton of art. Like every day, I think I make 2 or 3 pieces, and I'm trying to journal when I can. And art has been really helpful for me at like lowering my own expectations. Like,
really?
That's the problem with social media, is you see all this beautiful art and you're like, well, shit, I'm terrible. So, and after a while, you just have to go, all right, I'm just going to do this because of the way it makes me feel inside. So that's what it's all about for me. I'm just working on a lot of art and focusing on raising my kids and my family the best I can, and one day at a time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like your priorities are in a good place.
You ask my wife, we'll see.
Where can people find your stuff?
Probably Instagram is the place to find my art. I don't even remember what my handle is. I think it's at Christopher Robin 79 or something.
Wait, I'm pulling it up now.
I can't remember.
Christopher_Robin 79.
Yeah. That's where I put my art. And all my writing is on Medium, but it's all behind the paywall, which I still fight myself on. But
well, and you have a Substack too.
So that's another one of those projects that I've really been having a hard time maintaining. Like, it's just too hard to maintain all this crap.
Well, yeah, I mean, nobody's asking you to maintain it. It's just if people want to read stuff you posted, they can.
I do have a Substack. I just haven't paid much attention. I haven't written in a couple of months. So
I detect some shame.
I'm feeling a little bit of shame because I had built a pretty good audience and I was making a little bit of money. And I don't know, maybe that's part of it. But yeah, maybe I feel shameful. Damn it.
And that's the show.
Thanks for listening.
We make our guests feel shame.
They realize that they are ashamed.
No, I think that stuff will be there whenever you want to come back to it.
I think you're right, and I appreciate that. I think that's another one of those expectations. Like, okay, I'm taking a step back for me. I'll come back to it if and when I want. And we'll kind of go from there.
And when you're not pouring your energy into things that aren't serving you right now, that leaves room for other stuff you can do, like be with your family and make art, and who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Expectations, man.
Expectations, man. This has been so much fun.
I'm really glad to finally get to talk to you guys because I've been listening and I've known you both for a while now, and it's really cool to come on the show finally.
Yeah, and you'll come on again when we're more prepared. We'll do like video next time, maybe.
We'll get our mics and we'll get our shit together, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
No expectations, though.
No expectations. That's going to be the title, probably.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, too. We'll talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
If you like what you heard, don't forget to tell a friend about our podcast. You can direct them to picklesandvodka.substack.com where they can find our entire archive and also get access to our chat. We're on Instagram at Pickles and Vodka Podcast, Facebook.com/Pickles and Vodka Podcast, and YouTube.com/@Pickles and Vodka Podcast. My Instagram is @XtinaJumper and Lauren is @LaurenAFH. We have a free support group every Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard. Go to join.freeconferencecall.com/picklesanonymous. We'll see you next week.